What's going on? It's Matt. I am back from a Philadelphia and New Jersey road trip where I got to talk to a handful of restaurant owners and operators. And now we are live 3 o'clock Eastern Friday with another restaurant expert roundup. We're with the author of Unsliced, Mr. Mike Bausch. How are you?
Very good. Yourself?
I'm doing great. A little tired. Jets always get me and flying around. We were in 5 cities yesterday, parts of the Philadelphia, and I ate 3 cheesesteaks and a pizza because everybody had to have us test their food. So today I'm like in recuperation mode.
It's a lot to eat when you're in Philly. It's a big eating town.
Oh my gosh, we had the one place, Primo Hoagie, which is a franchise brand up there, really good. And he brought out like 5 samples, and it's like 10 a.m. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll eat them. Another guy's like, you got to go to this place. We went down to that Rick's Cheesesteaks, and then we end up at Gino's Cheesesteaks. Then we end up at Tacanelli's in downtown, which I can't wait for that episode to come out. We were talking about it off camera. I've never seen an 18 by 18 foot brick oven stove.
I've seen some big ones. I haven't seen one that big, and I'm surprised I missed out on it when I was there. So that's on my list now.
The best pizza I've ever had. I've had some good pizza. It literally was
big words.
Best pizza I've ever had. And from what I understand, one pizza review guy, can't think of his name, the Prez, he ranked it like a 9 something. So I guess it must be good.
Oh, El Presidente of Bausch.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess tell the audience who you are, a little about the book, a little about your background, and why you wrote the book.
My name is Mike Bausch. I own Andolini's Pizzeria, which is 5 brick and mortar, full-blown pizzerias in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I also have a food truck, 2 gelaterias, and a fine dining restaurant called Prossimo Ristorante. I opened in Tulsa, or in a suburb of Tulsa, in 2005. I was born and raised in New York, New Jersey, and out in California in the Bay Area. My brother got transferred here on business. He's older than me, as vice president of Alamo Rent-A-Car, and I decided I wanted to do a restaurant with that bonus, and now he and I own the business together, and I ain't drive halfway across America to suck at making pizza. So I threw myself into it and learned a lot of processes. And opening the one store, I knew I didn't want to just have one store and call it a day and live my life out of one suburban pizzeria. So it was trial by fire to create systems, to build a brand, and everything that I learned along the way from a success or a lot of them from failure, I put in a book that is a very much all killer, no filler book of saying, hey, here's how you create a system, regardless of your situation. Here's how you create a system. Here's how you evaluate it. Here's how you evaluate if the restaurant industry is even right for you, and handling people that aren't on payroll, marketing in a modern way that will last in an evergreen perspective, and just really poured myself into this book for the last 2 years.
And what got my attention this past 6 months, which I think a book like this, from what I've seen, I've read part of it. I haven't read the whole thing, full disclosure, but I've read some pretty awesome parts in here. I told you off camera, I have a habit. I don't read like books cover to cover. I like go this chapter, that chapter, and I go to that book, this book, because I try and focus on certain elements. But what the past 6 to 8 months has showed me during the pandemic, I watched Facebook groups and seeing questions by restaurant owners of stuff that they should 100% know, shouldn't be a question. It's just mind-boggling. Like I literally saw one 2 weeks ago where the guy said, hey, I've spent the last year trying to get the food cost from my chef. I just fired him. What do you think is the best way for me to get it? I'm like, you spent a year trying to figure out what the heck your food cost is? Like, what?
It's an industry filled with a lot of people that I think there's food, service, and ambiance is what I think all of the restaurant industry boils down to: food, service, and ambiance. And then there's a lot of guys who I make an amazing product, and then the other 2 parts of this tripod stool they give up on, are like, well, that'll fix service, or they're impeccable at service, but they don't care if they make a crap product, or they do all that, amazing pizza, great to their people, but they don't understand that having folding chairs is never going to move the needle for their business.
Yeah, and I think there's two businesses I'm involved with that are parallel almost. I'm an investor in a gym, a CrossFit gym. I've been in that for 7, 8 years now. And the gym business to me is kind of funny how it reminds me of the restaurant, because you'll get a person that's a trainer at a gym, has a 6-pack, understands how to do a couple of things, and goes, I'm going to get 20 grand from my mom and dad. I'm opening a gym down the street, and they do it. And they don't know anything else in the restaurant. I see it in the craft beer and the restaurant business is that There's a lot of people that can make a great product. I can make great ribs on my backyard grill. That doesn't mean I should have a damn restaurant. I'm the farthest from owning a restaurant.
It's very true. I call it the price of entry. Amazing food is the price of entry.
Yeah.
That's it. It just got you a ticket in the door. It gets you nothing else. The HR, the marketing, the sensibility, the ability to just run this marathon will eat people up and chew them out and spit them out if they don't have their act together. And if they think they have their act together and they're too egotistical, then it'll still eat them up, because you have to be able to announce to yourself, okay, I suck at that. Let's go to work.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to dig into it. I got 3 things, chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 8, that stuck out to me. The first one that got me was, I got little notes in here, was get your mind right. You have the bottom of here. It's your job to replicate that spirit every day in your business. And like I look at, I've got a playlist on my phone called Daily Routine. It's songs that get me thinking about making the right decisions. I think a lot of times people come into the business and they carry over everything happening everywhere else. And it really shows in their business. And I think that's what the chapter is about, from what I can tell, as far as getting your mind right. Let's talk about that.
The phrase "get your mind right" I took from Cool Hand Luke, and I referenced, if anyone's seen the movie Cool Hand Luke, Luke is this down and out guy, but he gets everyone so motivated to just stick it to the guards by paving this tar road on a day where they're just going to be beaten, and they haul ass and they get it done. They're like, let's go, let's get it done. Come on. And they get everyone's motivation up. And by leading by example and just having an exuberance for the day, he's able to achieve amazing things with a chain gang. And I say, you got to be able to bring that level of enthusiasm. And it's not fake motivation or, come on, guys, we can do it. It's really, let's go, come on. All right. And just wanting the ball and wanting to drive, that gets people jazzed about where they are. And if you could do that on a daily basis and forget all the problems of life, to your point, and focus on this, then this will unscrew up the rest of your problems.
Yeah. I talked to a friend recently who is 50-50 on getting his mind right. Has a business, has a restaurant, great person, runs a great business. But half of his days, he's thinking about what happened on Fox News yesterday or CNN yesterday, or he's thinking about the pandemic, or he's mad about the U.S. food trucks delivery last. And then I was talking to him about it. I said, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to run your restaurant, because I sure as hell don't know how to run a restaurant. I said, but I do a pretty good job of running and keeping myself pretty level and around my team and motivating. I said, you got to come in. It's like the great quarterbacks, like Tom Brady's of the world. I mean, they throw a pick, they can throw 10 picks in a row. And the next time in the huddle, it's never happened. It's the exact, the element that people have to be around to know how to succeed.
And then the reset and we win some major accolade. Fantastic. Next thing, let's go. Because the accolades don't make you stronger. It's an announcement of what you've done up to that point, but it doesn't make you any better. It just establishes the day. And now if you fall in love with your own smell, you're in a bad spot.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Fall in love with your own smell. I like that. That's a t-shirt. So this one is great, because I experienced this on Wednesday. I interviewed a gentleman named Matthew Borowski. He owns 618. It's a higher end steakhouse in Freehold, New Jersey. Okay. And he does a lot of stuff right. I mean, it's just, he's a higher end restaurant. He kind of, you walk into a restaurant, they know your name, they know who you are, they know what you did last week. And we were talking about that. And he made the same exact comment. He said, Matt, there's a difference between giving people good service and being hospitable. There's a difference between taking care of somebody or actually giving a shit about their experience. He goes, I'm going to tell you one of our cheats that we use. And they use OpenTable for everything. And he's like, one reason he likes OpenTable is the notes. Our team, every time somebody's in, makes notes. So that person creates a file. And he's like, I remember one time a while back, because we want to give people a different experience. We want them to realize we pay attention. He's like, so if we look in the notes and we see this person gets this wine every time, when they sit down, the wine is ready. But he talked about an experience. He said, I had a customer recently, months ago, who had a conversation about his son getting accepted into Harvard and was going to Harvard in the fall. And he said, I happen to be here. I look at the reservation list. I see the people. I look at the notes. And I'm like, oh, I hit the conversation. Guy sits down. We get talking. I walk up and I say, hey, how's your kid like in Harvard? And he's like, this guy was just it's different than just a table touch. Hey, how's your business? How's your meal today?
The worthless table touch. And those programs, we use Resi, Open Tables, good at that as well. That system was the proprietary builder of that type of experience was the Four Seasons. And before the internet, they had to rely on a Rolodex. And they would then, before like internet, they would call the other Four Seasons and have to like ask around and find out. And okay, that's Mr. Thompson and he's a gin drinker. Like they were, and now it's so easy to, again, anybody, even me as a pizzeria owner, I have my fine dining restaurant that I use that system for so we can go down that road. But it's beautiful, and it's the extra touch that is necessary now to create experience. Because again, food, great food, now what? And it's what's crazy about it is that costs nothing.
Yeah.
It costs nothing but just an extra 3 minutes of investment. And that 3 minutes can create an experience that can lead to multiple return visits, but people don't want to put in or don't think that 3 minutes could ever turn into something. They want to pay for it or do all sorts of other, like, well, if we have a fancier this or fancier that, but an experience. And to that point, again, hospitality is the knowing your name, wanting you there, and service, having, you know, the fork and the food served from the left, pulled from the right, all that kind of stuff is antiquated. It matters, but not nearly as much as hospitality does nowadays. And again, it's never been easier with the internet.
Why has, and I think this is kind of my analogy, I want to get your opinion on why it's disappeared. Because I grew up, my dad was an insurance agent, had an insurance agency. We ate out 5 or 6 nights a week growing up at restaurants. The maitre d' at every restaurant, whether it was at Barleycorns, the host, the managers, Art was one of the managers, whether it was Takas at Montgomery Inn, you know, whether it went to Mike Fink's, they knew when we arrived. And there was Mr. Blepp, hey, what's going on? Did you golf this week? Hey, how the kids football? And nowadays, like I actually go, I wear, you don't know me that well, but I wear basically the same orange shirt every day of the week. I have T-shirts, sweatshirts, I have golf shirts, I have the same shorts. One of my cars is orange. It's pretty easy to recognize the moron that comes in with orange shoes and orange shirt every time. We go to one restaurant in our neighborhood every week for the past 4.5 years. There's one server who I've seen twice that knows who we are. Okay. Nobody else. And we drop $80 typically is what it costs at this place for me, my wife, and kids, and usually a friend or two to tag along. They don't know who I am. And I'm like, I don't care from an ego standpoint, but it's like, man, imagine how much more endeared I would be when you walked up and said, Matt, what up? You know, how's football? Ryle's killing it. How's your son doing? Why has that disappeared?
It's a very long answer. I'll make it short. And if someone doesn't have ownership of the business, and I don't mean like they have ownership shares, but they don't own their job, they're not going to feel, and that's what's so important to empower employees. When you overly regiment something, like you will address them this way, this way, this way, instead of letting them be themselves and encouraging that, because typically that's the owner or the maitre d' who's given that singular task to know people and to build rapport. But servers are not explicitly given that task. I seek to give them that task, but that's the secret sauce, to tell them that, hey, you're allowed to be yourself and the heightened version of yourself, as opposed to what most, again, entry-level employees believe is, I better not screw this up. I better, yes, sir, no, sir. And they're so afraid, as opposed to, oh, right, hey, there you are again, looking good. That type of having fun with the customer. Again, matching the brand of the restaurant. These are the little nuances that are getting lost. As if someone's killing it, then they grow up to more businesses, and then it's hard to manage all that. If they're really a mom and pop, those things are just fewer and far between. I can't even find maybe 5 pizzerias in all of Manhattan that are actually owned and ran by the guy. You'll see it in Jersey, you'll see it in Brooklyn, Connecticut, but in the island of Manhattan, it's like you walk in, that guy doesn't own it. Yeah. And that's part of the loss.
Okay. Yeah, and I always run through these situations because we do a lot of little brainstorming sessions. We have a couple other clients around the country, and we do Zoom calls, talk about best practices. I let them talk because it's not, again, I'm not a restaurant consultant. I'm a marketing guy. But I kind of think of things that would catch my attention. Like me, if I walked into a restaurant and they said, Matt, here's the deal. If you ever come in here without an orange shirt, you're going to owe me $20. Yeah, I would laugh. It would make me, it would be different than, like Matt said in my podcast interview, he said, you better have, you're expected to have great food and great service. People that brag on having great food and great service, well, did you open a restaurant with shitty food or shitty service? You should have, having great hospitality is the next level.
It truly is. And the great hospitality can save shitty food. Shitty food cannot overcome bad service.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's a hard pill to swallow because most people, most independent single unit operators that get into a restaurant don't go into it saying, I love serving people, so then I'll figure a food item that works with it. They're like, I'm in love with brisket, or I'm in love with pizza, or I'm in love with spaghetti. Let me sell it. And then they're like, oh, and I also have to be nice to people. Or they just don't, they get that. They know it, but they really haven't opened themselves up to what that means for their staff and how to get to that level where everyone appreciates the customer on a consistent basis, other than, okay, here, you serve it at this time, you check in at this time. And again, the table touch, to what you said, the table touch has become, what's really occurring is, hey, I don't give a shit about you, and you sure as shit don't give a shit about me. So let me get through the next 15 seconds where the camera sees that I touch this table so that I can get past the goal is not to establish rapport. The goal is to touch the table, which they accomplish. And then hey, is everything great here, folks? Yes, please leave, is what they're really saying. Oh, it's great. When what we call in our restaurant, the poop. You got to find the poop. And so we have them do what's called customer connects, where they come to the table and I want them to build rapport for about 45 seconds of going around the table. Hey, and so it's like, oh, orange shirt. And in this town, that would be, oh, big OSU fan. Yep. And oh, cool. Is that a new Apple Watch? Blah, blah, blah. Well, have you ever been to this location before? No, I've been to that one, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is. Well, I'm Mike. I'm so really appreciate you coming out. Is there anything at all that could have been even just the littlest bit better? Really pouring it on. No, it's fine. No, just the littlest bit better, because we really want to know. Well, the Coke was a little flat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Get them a free dessert. And that way, whatever they were going to say when they got into the car, the poop that they were going to shit on this business, that was nice, but was that the flattest Coke you've ever had? We fixed it in that moment. They don't say it on Yelp. They know the person who talked to them. And if we do that, we gain another return visit.
So this is the most overused question in the entire world in every business. How are you today? And I remember when I was in radio back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I went to a sales school and they said, everybody in here, raise your right hand like you're in court and agree you will never ask this question again, because you don't actually give a shit if the person's good. It's an icebreaker. It's a terrible one. And sure enough, about a week later, call this guy up and I'm like, hey, man, so how are you? What's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm terrible. He leads into a 30-minute conversation about his wife caught him online dating and cheating. He's getting fired. It was a 30-minute. It was like a transition. Like, well, hey, how about your advertising spend? You want to buy radio? But I've talked about that before. The table touch, they walk up and it's the most insincere question that, like you said, that's awkwardness. Like Bob Jacoby as a general manager, I use him as an example all the time. He was my first ever podcast, MPTV, episode 1. He's a GM of Quaker Steak and Lube in Florence. When he walks up, he doesn't say, how you doing? He walks up and he asks a very specific question. Like he told me one day, he's like, yeah, if it's 90 degrees outside, I'll tie the question in with the weather. Hey, it's great to sit down in this air condition right now, isn't it? Because I know I was sweating my butt off out there. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then it starts a conversation.
As long as it's not cliched, and I mean, anything becomes cliched, you've heard it before. So if you're just approaching it in a different way, then that says a social signal that this is a unique conversation that your brain's going to need to process a non-social norm answer to.
Yeah, exactly. So my last question, and I'll let you go on with your Friday, is about the Velcro Logic. And I got a kick out of this because, man, it drives me crazy because it happens everywhere. It was talking about how the health inspector, they had banned, you couldn't have a silicone injector because somebody could fill the donuts with that on accident because it happened one time out of a million. And how I think a lot of businesses, I see it from a marketing standpoint, which is different conversation, but I see a lot of times like, oh, we don't do free appetizers as promos. Well, how come? Well, because we have everybody that comes in with it only uses the free app and gets water and leaves. Like, well, no, if you look at the research, 2 out of 100 did that, but you're making a rule based on 1 or 2. But I see a lot of businesses, especially government entities like Health Service, that make rules in their business because of it happening once out of 100.
Yes. It's a very DMV approach to the business, is appealing to the lowest common denominator. And when an independent business in America does that, it's just insulting. It's like, you own an independent business in America. Act like it. Don't appeal to the lowest common denominator. See a way where you expect your people to think, because if you don't expect them to think, they will reward you and prove you right. So really invest in the staff. There's going to be some things where you don't want to have too much autonomy, but I call it Velcro logic in a sense that if someone tripped on their untied shoes, I wouldn't mandate everyone in the restaurant wear Velcro shoes. I'd say, hey, show up with your shoes untied. You did that twice. I gotta let you go or make you wear slip-on Velcro shoes or something. I'm not gonna make everyone, because that would be stupid. Nonetheless, a lot of people appeal to the lowest common denominator. And to your point about the two people who screw over, I have 100% satisfaction guarantee. And yes, someone will take advantage of that, but 98 other people won't, and will feel a sense of purchase pride and purchase security that they can come in. If they don't love it, it's no questions asked, it's free. And there's people who got mocked in junior high or something that they're so afraid of someone getting one over on them that they lose their mind. If someone, hey, we're not going to be taken advantage of, why not? If you can, does it matter if you're right, if you're poor? Be wrong or be right and not say anything about it, and just get the money and do better as a business, and let two people screw you over and move ahead. It's so antiquated and short-sighted. And again, you and I see it everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, and your example, I don't know if you made that up or if that's something.
I made Velcro Logic up.
That's gold, because when I saw that, I knew when I saw the person tripping over their shoestrings, I'm thinking, and before it was written, I'm like, Velcro shoes. And it cracked me up, because it's like, okay, something happened once, I'm going to fix it forever. And, we see it a lot because what we're in the world of marketing. But I'll never forget, I had this conversation. Ironically, it was with the Quaker Steak and Lube brand. It was 3 locations. One of their 3 GMs hated this free appetizer promotion we were doing that was driving unbelievable customer opt-ins and unbelievable sales. The average check was higher than their normal average check, and we're giving them a free appetizer. And the one GM said, no, we got to quit doing it. Everybody that walks in gets the appetizer, gets a drink of water, a glass of water, and leaves. And I said, well, that's not accurate. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, okay, let's pull the data. So we actually pulled the data, and it was 8 people out of every 100 was their number for their 3 locations would come in and spend less than, it was $7 was the number we came up with, less than $7 and leave. So you're going to get rid of something that 92 people gave you their name, phone number, email, birthday, had a great experience, spent more than normal because 2 or 3 jackholes came in and got their wings and water and left. That's not how you make decisions. I always say I don't make decisions based on minority. I make them based on the majority.
That's the smart way to do it. It's a pebble in the shoe. They can have the perfect pair of shoes, but they have a pebble in it. They're like, this is a garbage pair of shoes. I use that with my staff. In that scenario, it happens just a lot, and I have to break them of it. And again, that's sometimes why people aren't owners, is because they don't see that. But I come across a lot of owners that are at single unit stores that will never do 100% satisfaction guarantee out of that little fear that someone's going to take advantage of them, and they just can't let it slide.
Yep. No, I love it. Okay. Well, that's all I got. I guess, how can people reach out to you? I've got, Amazon. That's where I got the book. Is there a better way where you get the money?
Yeah. If you go to unslicedbook.com, it has the links to buy it on Amazon, and reach out to me for anything you could dream up. You could go to unslicedbook.com. If you buy the book and you think it sucks, I will buy you dinner anywhere to go back on that guarantee. I guarantee this book, regardless of restaurant or just business in general, is enjoyable. I wrote it with a lot of humor. It has a soundtrack. It doesn't suck. This is not the Mike Bausch story. Here's a bunch of stuff that's going to benefit your life as a book. And that's what I thought for it to be. And I believe I achieved that.
Cool. Well, so far, what I've seen from it, I love. I figured that Velcro theory was something that, Edison or Einstein thought of, because it made too much sense, and I love it. So you ought to get you ought to get a Velcro
brand that.
You gotta brand that, the generic looking Velcro shoes, man, that the 80-year-old dude wears at Panera.
I'll talk to him next time I'm there. I'll say
cool.
What up.
Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and look forward to maybe one day making out your way and meeting you in person and trying the restaurants and getting my book signed. But I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you too.